Yes, that's I'm here for the sign for the Town Place Suites on 237 Russell.
Yes. So I had sent that around, but it turns out that it was not easy to get. Jason sent me a PDF today, this afternoon. So I'll put those up. I don't know if anyone else had a chance to see it. Mark and I could not get into it. But let me
Could
see.
you put your video on?
Yeah, I'm gonna share it. So there are two pieces to it.
Jason B, could you please put your video on?
Yes. Did that do it?
That's good, thank you.
So I believe this is the sign you want to put up.
Yes. It'll be 4x8, a piece of plywood size, 32 square feet.
Okay. I may have misled someone along the line. I did check our bylaw, and construction signs are limited to 10 square feet.
Okay.
So can you shrink it to 10 square feet?
Yeah, I could. It won't be much. Yeah, I could if that's what we're limited to. We can basically take this thing down and shrink it to proportionally to 10 square feet.
Okay. So I will. You also sent a site plan, and was that showing us where it was going to be?
Yeah, basically it'll just be right out in the middle of the site, right on the edge of the road.
Okay.
It just helps people with deliveries and things like that as well. It gives the owner a little bit of advertising ahead of time to let people know what's going there.
So that's your. Let's see, what is.
Okay.
Stop share, get that one out, and try to get the other one up. And for some reason, it doesn't want to share.
I see it, Bill.
Yeah, we see it.
Oh, okay. Where am I missing it then? So I'm not seeing it as a live window on mine. Let me see if I can get back to here. Okay. Well, I will. Don't know what happened to it.
Yeah, it's very self-explanatory, Bill. It's all in color and very easy to see what they're proposing.
Okay. Well, I'm going to stop share then.
Okay.
So definitely it is allowed up to as a temporary sign up to 10 square feet. So I'll make a motion to approve the temporary the construction sign at 10 square feet.
Second.
Motion second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Very good. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Next up would be Mr. Iser. Let me see if I can find his plan.
I have an A&R plan at 79 Mount Warner Road. Very simple, straightforward. Once Bill gets it on the screen, I'll describe it for you. Okay, so what I'm doing is combine these people. Matthews own two parcels. They have their original house lot with the house on it, and then when Autumn View Drive was created, there was a few, let's see, three neighbors that got a little bit of the property that was part of that subdivision, and the second parcel behind Matthew's house is I'm combining it with the front one to make one contiguous lot so that they get one tax bill, etc. So we're not creating any new lots. We're actually taking a lot line away and making a bigger parcel than well, it's what they own. It's not a bigger parcel. It's just one parcel instead of two.
Okay. Any comments, anybody? Questions?
I don't see anything detrimental about this in any way.
Okay,
Make a motion to sign the APR,
A&R.
ANR.
close enough.
TDR.
You have a motion second?
Second.
All
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Very good.
Yeah, I'll hunt you down this week, Jimmy, if I can. The house is on the market, and the owner wants to have this plan for the potential buyer. So I'll catch
Okay.
up with you as soon as I can.
Mr. Matthews is leaving the area?
Yes, he is. He's going to the Finger Lakes.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
He was one of the authors of the master plan, I believe.
The original master. No, not the master.
Yes, the original master plan. He
Original master plan, yes.
was the original chairman that was
Yeah, that's
replaced.
fine.
Yep.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
okay.
have nothing else.
Very good.
Next up would be David Phil Senior.
Okay, I'm just back to get clarification from us here with you guys, a meeting a few weeks ago. And Bill, you got as I think, December 28th that Jimmy sent you
Well, let's see. I wasn't expecting this, so.
I know,
Let me see. December 28th. Okay.
it was from me to Jim and then Jim to you guys. If that helps you.
Yeah, I found Jim's. Right. So let me get back in here. Get into sharing. And think that will do it.
Okay, so, we're looking at, you gotta go west.
Go, drop the screen down, Bill. Go up.
Okay.
The screen. Go
To,
up, the other side of Middle Street. There we go, right there.
Yeah. Okay, so we're looking at, parcel 45, 215 Middle Street.
Yep.
And remember I talked that we want, where the dash lines are, I wanted to separate things. And where the, lot number 47, I wanted to add some of that field to, lot 47, which is 209 Middle Street. And then behind 46 and 45A, that would be just a landlocked parcel that Joyce and I would have in our name. The question is, we don't have the 40,000 square feet for 215. And it's on town sewer. And I don't know that, I wanted to be sure that it was okay with you guys, because originally you said it was fine to do it, but we're not adding lots, making anything more buildable. We're just trying to make all the lots on the street kind of conform, go all the way down to the ditch, eventually.
Do you own 45C, David?
No, I do not.
Okay,
That's under, well, it's all kind of, just wooded, and Frestal could have, covenants on that. I'm not sure about that. I know Kosher has his land with Crystal, but
so okay,
and the other issue about the 215 Middle Street parcel where the house is, all that land out back, it's almost, you can't get there. You can almost drive a pickup truck, to get out back there. But as far as anybody using it, as far as part of their yard or anything like that, it doesn't happen.
Whose road is that?
You mean where the dash lines are, the right of way?
Yeah.
That'sKozier's right away down to his what his father had a lot on the other side of the ditch, and also the town has a right of way to maintain the ditch through that area.
So lot 45, which is 215 Middle Street, would be reduced down to just being south of 45A.
Yep.
Yes. That's what he's talking about. That little dotted line you can see at the upper left corner of 45A.
Yeah.
This would become the
That's
new
the lot
property
line he
line.
wants to create.
And then the other thing to keep in mind, you know how the setback for the town property goes all the way back to the house on that property. You got 8,000 square feet of front lawn that's technically on town or county property. So there is a lot of green space with that house that isn't on the deed or shows up on this print, you know? Of course, that's the way the whole street is on that side.
Do you know what I don't know if it matters. Do you know what the square footage will be of the remaining 215? That'll be under 30,000.
Yeah, so, yeah, it'll be under 30. But, well, again, if you went out there, it's a decent yard for any family with kids or whatever, you know, for the size of the house.
Right.
It's not a tiny little thing.
So question for the board, how would that impact them at all? Only if someone bought it and or they tore it down and wanted to rebuild, then they could not, or?
I guess to answer your question, Mark, if somebody tore that house down and to rebuild it, the lot, that 68 foot that is shown there, that little where the dotted line is,
Yeah.
that you wouldn't be able to build back there anyways. It drops off significantly. It's I don't know if it's in the floodplain, but it's probably pretty close to it. Because once you go beyond the line of the lots of 47, 46, and 45A, that rear lot line,
Yeah.
the property drops off pretty significantly, about what, 10 or 15 feet beyond that, Dave?
Yeah, during, I think it was the 87 flood that we had, or 84, the water came up maybe a third of the way up the hill, like where it says 1.45 acres, probably up to that portion. It was
Okay.
flooded.
Yeah.
So, do we have that kind of authority to waive that?
No, we really don't. So expanding the backyard area of parcel 47, 209 Middle Street is not a problem. Leaving 211 and presumably 213 as is not a problem because they're grandfathered. But cutting up the balance of lot 45 to create a landlocked parcel that's separate from number 215 does create, that's technically not proper because you're creating a more non-conforming lot. I'm going to think you probably have the 40,000 square feet in this section over here and this section, although
Yeah.
I can't tell that for sure without seeing a survey.
There's a little more than the 40,000 square feet. And number 46 is where my son owns. And eventually, with probably turn it over to him, but if the boundary line is halfway down, you know, the middle of his property going down to the ditch is kind of worthless, you know? Of course, we're making one lot small, but the other one's larger, more conforming. So it's like a, you know, balancing act, I guess. And we certainly are not trying to get anything buildable out of there. It's just open space, more yard space for the other larger houses on the street.
I think it makes more sense just to leave the balance of 45 attached to 215 for now. That's not a problem, I don't think, although I'd want to see a survey to be sure.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm not seeing what it gets you to landlock it or create a new lot back there. It just creates a headache for you, I think.
But
So-
it's not our power to stop him, is it? If he wants to create a landlocked parcel, is that?
And but that's not the thing. He's taking a conforming parcel and making it non-conforming.
Yeah,
So that's the problem. We can't, yeah, if you want to landlock yourself, that's fine, or reserve an easement, that's fine, but by creating this as a property line here, you are making this lot more non-conforming than it is now. It's already non-conforming because it only has 107 feet of frontage. But it does have the acreage. And I know it's not really useful acreage, but it's how the bylaw is written.
Okay. Now, if at some point we wanted to shoot a line straight down between 46 and 45A and actually assign it to 46, would that be acceptable? Even though if 215 would still,
We have to see a survey. We have to know what if it came up at 39,500, that might be one thing. I can't tell looking at this how much land there is there.
you could be around 30,000 on 215, my guess, if we did it that way.
Yeah, but we're just guessing. You need to pay someone to do the work.
Okay. All right, so then the dotted line adding on to 209, that's not an issue because we still have the 40,000 square feet on
Probably.
215. Yeah.
I think you do, but I can't say for sure looking at this.
Well, if we do, you don't
If
have an
you
issue.
do,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
it would be similar to what you just saw us do for John Matthews. Just change lot lines on an approval not required plan. That's not an issue because everything remains conforming or no more non-conforming.
okay.
It's creating something that is more non-conforming that is the stumbling block.
Okay,
I'm just imagining you might be able to enhance 47 and 46, but not go straight back, maybe angle more northwest so that you leave more for the 215 lot. But yeah, that's not ours to design.
yeah, and then, everybody can be creative on lines to meet the law, but then you got a lot of screwed up property lines and worthless land again. And right now, when, we own most of it, it's not an issue, but if became other property owners, then there's issues. So I don't want to get into something really messed up like that, but yes, you could do that. Right. Not the answer I wanted, but at least I got an answer.
Yeah. Probably.
All right, you guys. Well, thank you for your time.
Sorry, David.
No, well, hey, at least I'd rather know ahead of time instead of going through all the work and then get rejected. All right, thank you. Good evening.
All right.
All right, and next up is Mr. Reedy, Attorney Reedy.
Thanks, Bill. Hi, everyone. I am here to submit for the redevelopment of the Subaru site. So it's 305, 315, and then 303 rear Russell Street. I had sent on Monday a Dropbox link to the planning board's email address, copied Bill and Jim. Hopefully you were able to access it. If not, I can, we have other methods of getting it to you, but I wanted to submit it, answer any initial questions that you have if you were able to look at it, get the filing fee, coordinate with Jimmy for the abutters, mailings, et cetera, et cetera. So that's
Do
why.
you want to share your screen and just put something up so we can have a quick look at it?
Yeah. Let me.
I did tell Tom that since he wasn't actually asking us to do anything on this except accept it for filing, that having it come in late wasn't going to be a problem. But you'll all have plenty of time to look at the plans. I think I did circulate everything around to everyone.
I will start with the rendering if it comes up. Do you see anything?
White.
White screen.
I wonder why it did the whiteboard. Let me try to unshare that. I saw that. Share screen. Safari. Hopefully this will work. Okay. It should be much better.
Yes.
So this is just a rendering, and I'll show the site plan in a moment if I can figure out how to get out and get back in. The proposal is going to be to take down the existing Steve Lewis Subaru building. We're going to need a finding from the Zoning Board of Appeals, and maybe it makes sense. Let me try to. Do you still see the rendering, or do you see me scrolling?
You see you scrolling.
Okay, great. So this is probably the better one to show. This is obviously the Steve Lewis Subaru site. You've got 305, 303 rear, and then 315 Russell Street. This is as it's existing, and I'll scroll down and you'll see the proposal. So it's to take down, this building's remaining. This is where the old rail is. That's obviously already down, but it's going to be incorporated into this whole site. Instead of having this, right up against the property line, violative of the rear yard and side yard setback. This one here still violates, this is the industrial zoning district and the aquifer protection overlay district, still violates the side yard, but we'll go to the ZBA to get a finding that it's not substantially more detrimental to locate that here. But then everything else is going to be compliant. We may need a waiver as to a couple of different items, such as parking in the front setback or in front of the building. And then also this inventory is in that front setback, but I believe this is all raised with a retaining wall. So it's obviously separate and distinct from the traveled way, not like it is now. And then you'll probably recall I was here, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, to talk about parking and to gauge the board's reaction to whether or not a zoning amendment was appropriate. And I think that, what I took from the discussion was pretty clear. It's not appropriate in that we should take a look at it. And so we've got calculations on here of how much parking it would be required at 1-to-1. And so I know under TDR, I had mentioned it in the email, we can go to 1.5-to-1 where your standard is 2-to-1. And so obviously I don't need an answer now, but as we go through the process, something to think about, because, we're providing parking on site, but we will need to buy some amount of parking through TDR, depending upon whether it's 1.5-to-1 or 2-to-1 as far as that parking ratio. And really the rub is counting the display space on the exterior, which we know that's how the rules of the game say we have to play. So Let me see if I've got what else I may want to show you.
Is required green space covered?
Yeah, we meet it. I think we've got essentially 20.2% of open space. The building coverage is less than 20%. I think it's at 18%. So we should all be compliant there. Given that it's in the aquifer, they're doing a above ground storage of the oil and any like fluids inside the building. And so, you know, I don't know if, frankly, I haven't done, you know, I think the last one I did was Ideal Movers, which has been getting a little bit of press lately. But I don't know if you still go through, like we get to choose Berkshire Design or someone else, they'll take a look at it and then we'll go back and forth a little bit. I don't know if you want me to identify to you all the things that we need, we're asking for waivers on, et cetera. I'm happy to do that. But that's really the overview. 31,000 plus square foot building here. This building staying the same at 4,800 square feet. And it really is modernizing the site. There'll be 2 overhead doors here where folks will be able to pull up, drive in, leave their vehicle there. They go in and they check in this space. There's a waiting room. Then there's all the bays in the back here. You know, I can probably show you a floor plan.
And the parking connects into the back of the this. What's the other store? Railroad Salvage or something? What's it?
Harbor Freight. They're
Harbor
actually
Freight.
separate and distinct. So what will happen is, see how it connects right here?
Yeah.
But these are separate and distinct sites. This is the Harbor Freight. This has nothing to do with this. I think there's emergency access.
Further west, yeah.
But for circulation, I think when we A&R'd this and went through the process to have this be separate and modify the site plan approval, which had approved it for Rayos at that time, part of it was making sure that these gates, you know, you can't see it a little off screen here, but that they're only used for emergency vehicles.
Yeah. Shows up down here. Yeah. You can see it on that plan. Right.
So there's a gate there, and then there's a gate here.
Emergency access. Got it. Okay.
Everything's coming in through this 315 Russell Street site. So no one's going to be coming in unless it's an emergency vehicle. Nobody's going to be coming in to access this auto service center in the back. This is really, I would call it, you know, an ancillary or accessory use for the automotive dealership use. I can show you that floor plan.
So Tom, can you scroll back to the last plan? So yes, so the line just above or east of that back building makes it look like 2 parcels, no?
Yeah, and actually have the Venerable Randy Eiser's office performing an consolidation plan through A&R to have all of these parcels combined. And so for the purposes of calculation, we've combined all of them.
Yeah.
We've just got to get that plan filed with you guys to actually consolidate those parcels.
Thank you.
Sure. I don't know that there's any other pretty pictures that any folks want to see. It's a pretty well thought out plan.
I will make one comment for your reduction in parking request.
Okay.
Right now, you're infringing on the 50-foot front yard setback. And you want relief on that. If you are willing to not park in the 50-foot front yard setback, I, only as one member, would be willing to negotiate on parking. If they're not willing to bend on the 50-foot front yard setback, then you shall comply with a 2-for-1 parking.
And so could we do TDR? I mean, would that?
No, well, Jim's making an excellent point. The fact that the new parcel, former Rose Coffee, there, well, I'll back up even more. The parking for the existing Subaru was only 30 feet back. And we gave them a concession. However, you're duplicating that concession we gave to the parcel to the east to Rose Coffee, which is a new thing. So that should really be 50 feet back. But you're parking now, well, you're parking presently, the cars are almost on 91. I thought they were going to be cantilevered over, on Route 9 rather. If they were any closer, they'd have to be cantilevered over the road. So already you're infringing on it. That did not come before the board. And that was Rouse Coffee. And so this is basically a new site for the parking in that area. That's what I envision.
In 2D, I don't know that it does it justice, but I think, you've got your right of way at, let's say, elevation 140, and then this elevation starts at 145. So you've already got a 5-foot difference between the traveled way. And I thought, Joe, you had said at one of the last meetings, it is that you want to make sure that people travel safely and don't think somebody's waiting to get out onto the roadway. If it's more than that, which I can appreciate if it is, we'll certainly take a look at it. But somewhat initially, I just want to put that out there, is that these aren't at the same level as the traveled way.
Well, I'm not talking about the elevation. You seem to be deterring from the original concern, which is the setback.
Right. And my comment is more about the purpose of the setback, as it could cause, if you don't adhere to it, confusion with the motoring public because of the proximity of the parked vehicles to the roadway.
That's one of multiple issues, Tom. The other issue was to give some decent green space between the road and the business, period. Elevation is nice, but it's still blacktop, 25 feet of blacktop and a 50-foot right of way. And we like to see 50 foot of green.
Okay.
So I will go back to my original comment. If it isn't 50 feet, I'm not willing to negotiate on the parking. I will be willing to bet I would get the majority of the board to go with me on this. I hate to be a hard bunch, but my feeling is that's it.
Okay.
That's only my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think also, Tom, I get that you're offering progress on the aesthetic impression of the cars, but what you're also doing is basically creating a bank so that in the unpleasant situation where there's an accident and a car spins off the road, you're basically pushing it back into like a pinball game instead of giving it some space to get out of the way. If there was, what I mean, if a car spins off, you kind of would like it to be able to have 50 feet to go and stay out of the mix instead of coming back in and hitting other cars.
I'll just note quickly, from the property line, that would be 25 feet away before you get to, I don't think it's a vertical wall as I'm looking at the elevation plans, but your point's heard.
Okay.
And it looks like we might lose, something like, if I had to kind of extrapolate, we might be able to push some things around a little bit, maybe reduce the width of that and push it back, but we're probably losing this first row, I would suspect, right? If we're 25 feet here, I don't know you look, looks like you've got your setback, well, we'll take a look. I hear you.
Right.
So I'll just add that the 50-foot, no parking in the 50-foot front yard setback is stated as a goal in the bylaw. It is not a requirement of the bylaw. It's a preference. So depending on what you can do, there may be some room. Let's see what great plan revisions you can come up with, and we'll see if there's room for some further discussion.
Okay.
And are there any signs that are shown here?
Oh, great question, Joe. I don't think so. Let me get some signage.
I see a pylon sign out at the end of the.
It's called this, but I don't know that we've provided a detail for it. That's the problem. Yeah, right there. I'll get the detail for the pylon.
Oh, ye elders of the multiple decades on the board, could you explain to me and others? I've heard Tom make several references. Is the display parking not counted as in their 2-to-1?
It is. When we modified the bylaw to say that we counted your business floor area, including external display and external areas dedicated to your operations, we were actually primarily thinking about some restaurants that were setting up outdoor seating areas that were effectively doubling their floor area without doubling their parking.
Right.
We did not, at the time we adopted it, I don't think we gave a lot of thought to how it would apply to something like an auto dealer. When we did have an auto dealer come in, I will say that the other Class 1 dealer on the other end of Route 9 went through site plan approval before we made the change to that parking definition. So they're not subject to it, but we did, when we dealt with it with a couple of used car dealers, we said that we would just count the actual dimensions of the car, which I think is what Tom has reflected in the upper left-hand corner, where there's sort of a 3-deep stack of cars in there. And we count it towards its overall parking requirement, but we acknowledge that they're functionally packed in hood to trunk and door to door.
Right.
It's not completely satisfactory for dealing with a car dealer. So it is something that maybe we will want to tweak that. When Tom was in 2 weeks ago, he was talking about tweaking it especially for the a dealer in the industrial district, of whom this is the only one. And I said I wanted to be fair to the what is it, Mazda, Nissan, Country Nissan as well. I don't know if I don't have any bright ideas, but I think there is room for some discussion of whether the parking rule should be changed for a car dealership. Whether we probably will not be getting to that in time to satisfy the needs of this application, but it is something I'd like to look at.
Yeah, and it's possible we may not have to modify it so much in an actual zoning bylaw. We can talk about that but it's possible that the display area you're using is actually the parked cars themselves. So they're displaying the vehicles that would be parked. So maybe that might cancel each other.
I'm also wondering, no, that's okay.
We went through something like that, Jim, with the Country Nissan, and I remember they said, well, we'll accommodate it. And I know when Lisa Sanderson was on the board, she says they claimed that they were going to adjust the parking after a little while but they never did. So their parking is really out of what we were recommending. So we have to be a little cautious too, how we leave the ends of the
Yeah.
site.
Yeah, they have parking closer in the 50-foot front yard setback in
Correct.
two places. In
Yep.
one place, it was grandfathered sort of right up against the building. But to the left of the drive, but to the west of the entrance drive as you go in, that was supposed to be moved. And the zoning enforcement officer at the time never followed through on that. So they're probably grandfathered or adverse possession or something of that nature. They're probably going to be hard to disrupt at this point.
And so just back to Jim, when you say you won't negotiate, does that mean you won't go down to 1.5? You won't consider some creative alternative?
Well, I'm willing. I guess without seeing numbers, it's hard to say what I would or wouldn't do.
Okay.
Okay.
It looks like, I think I've got it. Hold on, let me find it.
In other words, your building is 30 couple thousand square feet. Right?
Yes, it is. So we've got your total building area, 36,368, inventory, 17,424. So for a total of 53,792. What we provide is 70,000. So we're about 17,000 square feet short at just at a 1-to-1. If you do 1.5, then obviously that's different. At 2-to-1, we would need 108, let's say, 1,000 square feet. We're at 70, so we would be buying, TDR of, and I could do the math to figure out what exactly that is. But that's the way I've been thinking about it. Like 1.5 costs this much, 2 costs this much.
My only problem with getting too much into what to negotiate with, Tom, this is not the public hearing.
I hear.
Right.
So I don't want to say what I would or wouldn't do because this is just an information thing and I don't want to get into trouble with an open meeting law.
Sure.
I have an idea of what I would do, but unfortunately, I can't tell you here.
Understood. Okay. Well, we'll look to see what we can do to pull back off the road. I mean, that's the biggest.
Looking quickly at your plan, I'm gonna modify my comment a little bit. It looks like 50 feet may be extreme because where you got your dotted line or the 50-foot setback,
Yep.
and then if you go just to the left of that, you looks like you're parking cars end to end here
Yes.
for display. Well, I don't want to wipe out 2 rows of parking on you because that seems like it would not be fair. But I would, if you just wiped out the front row and moved that back, maybe that's 5 feet. I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't want to be, I'm going to modify my 50-foot comment a little bit. Just that front row is out.
Okay.
And then, and that would be green space up to that point. And leave it at that. Like I said, I don't want to go beyond that.
Thank you.
Do we have a picture of the building?
Yes.
Yeah, it was the first one that I showed. Let me get back to that. 20, I think it's 26 feet tall, high ceilings, single story. There is a mezzanine back in that area, but I would say pretty tasteful, not going to be overbearing. And it's, one of the things I'll point out on, where's it, right here. Now there's a plan that shows these 2. So this shows the outline of the existing building just for kind of scale and proximity to the roadway.
Right.
Here's what we're talking about. You're 177 feet back from the property line, let alone, even more to the traveled way. So just to put what you saw is set back.
Obviously, signage will not be internally illuminated and all that stuff, and it's going to comply. Those signs look like they're more than 64 square feet.
Yeah, I'll have to look to see. I don't know that they did the detail of how big, but I'll make sure we have that.
Okay. Okay, public hearing. How is March 19th?
Sounds great.
Okay. What address do you want me to use for the legal notice, Tom?
315,
315?
please.
The red and the green, that's marked wetlands or?
Yeah, a couple of different, so
Buffers.
the blue is wetlands. This is the 35-foot no touch. This is the 100-foot jurisdictional buffer, because we're gonna have to go through Concom.
Yeah.
This red is the outline of the existing building.
Yeah.
Right, and then this is already, they're not doing, I think there might be some minor exterior changes, but it's really more like they're finishing the building. If you know, there's really a dirt floor in there. So they're not gonna really impact any of these wetlands, but that's what those lines mean. And then the purple one is riverfront because of, I think it's Dawson's Creek, just to the west, right there.
Thank you again.
Jim, how much do I owe you?
I won't know like that, so I would get the prices of the Gazette, because their prices are, they're all over the place now, and I hate to give you some ridiculous price, and I also hate to short the town.
Sure.
What I do is I get the price out of the Gazette, I add like 10 or 15%, and you'll pay that price with including postage.
Okay, yeah, and what we can get you we can do the abutters list. We can slap the labels on them when we get them from Dan. We can do postage prepaid and just drop them off both sets at your house whenever.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, I should have a price. Today's Tuesday. By Thursday or Friday, I'll email you the price.
Okay.
Actually, I'll mail you a application signed, and all you're gonna do is file it.
That sounds perfect. That's perfect.
Because there was an application in that file, right?
There is, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Any peer review on this, or just we go through?
The usual, you have the list of the peer review
Okay.
people.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know who are you using as your site engineer?
This is Crossman Engineering. It's someone that Belize has used. I'm impressed with them, but they're just not local, so I'll probably use Berkshire to do the review.
All right.
Well, thanks everyone for your time. I really appreciate it, as always.
Good.
Let me just get some stuff out of the way here. So Mr. Baiano in the green would be next. We have nobody else on the information list.
The
Yeah,
iPad.
you're up.
Awesome. Thank you guys. How's everybody doing? I'm here to represent in the green tenant at 243 Russell Street. I brought some pictures with me of the site right here currently. Let's see what we have here. So everybody can see that. So this is what everything's parked as of this afternoon, what it looks like here. It's all my equipment and everything in there that we keep throughout the winter at the yard here that we're not using when we're out of season. So everything fits in there well. You can see the back of the yard here where the fence was repaired, and you can also see the dirt area outlining the lot there as well. So that was just wanted to kind of just refresh everybody what everything looks like, and if anybody wasn't able to get out here before the meeting to see what everything looks like, but everything's neat and orderly. I also have my my landlord, Robin Stasha Roy, were actually able to make it to the meeting tonight. They're on Stasha's iPad, I believe is their name right there, and they had some things that they wanted to say.
Is that a dumpster out at the front of the driveway?
Oh, yeah, so that's for the waste company to be able to get it. It's easier for their truck to drive straight into the yard rather than if it's behind the building. So when they pick up, it's just easier for them.
What's the other machinery you have in front?
Oh, that's my screener there. I have somebody coming to look at it on Thursday morning there, and I just didn't have a machine at the yard that's big enough to be able to slide it to the back.
I wonder if that dumpster could go back against the building to the west side of it looked like there were two overhead doors, perhaps.
Yeah, I can pull that up again. Hang on 1 second. So right here on to the right, or right here where the opening and the fence is, it's usually here to the right, but they'll be in the winter time and everything like that with the snow. It was just easier for the waste company to be able to grab it during this time of the year.
I guess if the screener's gone, it could go back there.
Mm-hmm.
I was over there yesterday. The fence is up. It's not completely intact, but
No,
that it was.
Steve had sent in a work proposal from Heritage Surveys, and that is, there's a problem with that. We're going to talk about it now. The
Mhm.
problem is that we can't meet outside of a public hearing. So I could not circulate it to the rest of the board, have them make their comments on whether it was adequate, and then get back to you with a go or no go.
Mhm.
So I'm going to bring it up now. So, and I've shared it with everyone.
I didn't see that it explicitly called out the identifying boundaries of
Well, let's get it up.
wetland.
And um,
You've got it up.
yes, I have it. I'm just going to scroll and see if there's a second page, and that's just the acceptance. So, to Mark's point, the question is whether task 2 incorporates a wetlands evaluation.
I mean, I appreciate that you're taking this on. $10,000 is not easy on a small business, but one of the things that has been brought up again and again is the wetlands. And if you're in violation of that,
So I'm going to go to the 8.51 1 through 1 through 14, except 11 and the traffic study. And yes, 8.5.1.4, existing and proposed topography at the 2-foot contour intervals and the location of wetlands, streams, water bodies, drainage swales, areas subject to flooding, base flood elevations, and unique natural land features. So That's not one of the ones that is excluded. So yes, that does include wetlands documentation work.
That's good.
I know they're not before us, but if we're concerned about wetlands with this site, shouldn't we be concerned with wetlands as they apply to the abutters? I mean, you can't just truncate it off.
We did that when we did site plan approval for those.
Okay.
And Paul Zaradnik has provided us with, and I've circulated around the documentation that he provided for us when we looked at his site. And that would be something we'd want to be sure that Berkshire Design had, our Heritage Land Survey had access to. Did I send you a copy of that, Steve, of what Paul had filed with the conservation agent?
I don't think I got that one. I can check my email again though.
Okay. I will make sure that you do get it, because that is really what we're talking about here, that his understanding is that you are in wetlands and your understanding is you don't think you are. So that is the question we have to answer.
Definitely. Yeah, and my landlord would also like to say something, I'm sure, as well. You know, in conjunction with this and going forward as well in the meeting too. So I don't want to keep it open for a discussion on this or.
It pretty much appears that what has been quoted is the areas that we have the concerns of. Parking and stuff like that, traffic study, where that's kind of irrelevant here. Because of traffic, the parking is pretty straightforward, but in a traffic study, you really don't have, you're not a traffic generator except for yourself.
Exactly.
Do they give you a timeline of when this could be done by, or how long it would take?
Back when I talked to them, they were able to come out pretty quickly, like within probably like 2 or 3 weeks. But that was about a month ago when I talked to them. We were able to get this. So you know, between meetings and all. So I'm not sure what his timeline currently is. And then also as well with the plan too, so if we do go ahead and get all this done, then does that guarantee that we won't have to do anything else to the property, or is this just a kind of a look and see?
I think some of what might else would be required will depend on what the survey shows. Okay, I mean, I don't want to say we don't right now. I would say probably nothing else, but depending on what the elevations are, might you need some drainage adjustments? That's a possibility. Okay. Because you want your water to stay on your property and not run onto anybody else's. So you might need to put in some kind of drainage within your property. Okay. Other comments on the board? Comments from anybody else in the audience?
Yes, there's comments from the owner.
Yes.
Okay, my name is Rob and my wife is Stacia. We're the owners of 243 Russell Street. This is the first time we're hearing about this. Okay. I'm going to go down for a quick history of the property. We've owned the property for 25 years. 5 businesses have been there in the past 25 years, 2 of which were fence companies, Hadley Fence and Hasty Fence. We've never had issues with this property or drainage on this property for the entire life of the property, the 25 years. My wife and I started there as a tanning salon for about the first 5 years. Paul Zaradnik was to the east of us, and Paul decided to build a building in the back. We had no objections to this. We never went to any of the meetings with the planning board. We never objected to anything that Paul Zaradnik did. At the end of his project, he built a beautiful building. I'll give him credit there. he came to us and he said, we have a problem. And I said, what's that? And he said, the storm drain on that southeast corner is on my property. However, the bowels of the storm drain are on your property. He said, I'll have to dig it up and move it, or unless you grant me an easement. Well, being a good neighbor, I granted him an easement because the bowels of that storm drain are on my property. I thought that was pretty nice of me. I never gave him a hard time about anything because I said to myself, more business is better. That building behind my building is only going to increase the value of my property. So I didn't have any issues with it. Moving forward, Lisa Sanderson bought the property to my west. She was in it for a few years and she decided to build an addition. Again, no problem for me and Stacia. Never attended any meetings, had no problem with it. More business in the neighborhood is going to increase the value of my property. Tried to be a good neighbor, never harassed anybody. Put up with the cars across the street on Route 9. It was a junkyard for our first 10 years there. Okay? Never said a word, didn't want to ruffle anyone's feathers. Again, tried to be a good neighbor. At some point during when Lisa was there, well, let me just step back a second. Hasty got really, really busy, and they needed a turnaround in the front because it was very dangerous for cars to back out onto Route 9 because it's such a busy road. So he tried to put a turnaround in the front, and Lisa went out of her mind about it. And I don't understand that because she has 2 parking spaces in the front, but that's okay for her. So that kind of ruffled my feathers, but I didn't challenge it. It was the way it was. And again, trying to be a good neighbor, I didn't want to get in her face about it. To my understanding, Steve wanted to do the same thing. She objected vehemently to that. Again, I didn't get involved in it. It seems to me like she seems to have backed off a little bit, but it seems like Paul's relentless on Steve. It's almost to the point of bordering on harassment. I'm just finding out a lot of stuff now. He's 23 years old. He's a good kid. He's just out of college. He's trying to start a business. I think we've all made mistakes when we were 23 years old. I think we can all agree to that. My hat's off to the kid. I admire him for a challenge like this in life, that early, to start a business like that. He's working with you. He's trying to correct all these deficiencies, okay? My wife and I have a mortgage on the property. We're both retired. The income on the property is very important to our finances. If this kid is put out of business, it's going to be a domino effect. It's absolutely going to affect us. We would have liked to have gotten a lawyer, an accountant, a chiropractor, anything like that. But when a property sits vacant, because of the construction on Route 9, you got to take what comes along. And Steve was the first person to come along that had an interest in the property, and that's why we took him. I'm almost done. The front right now is a mess, simply because we have an easement on the front. There's a right of way for the state until the construction of Route 9 is done. I don't think the solution to this thing is a $10,500 drainage system that was never there in the first 25 years of the property when I had other businesses there. I think that's unacceptable. It's unreasonable. Mr. Steve is trying to work with you to correct the situation. He's done everything that you have asked. I think there's other ways to mitigate this. We can go back to planting the grass. I know the grass at some point was removed by Hasty when they were there. I talked to Steve about it. We can put all the grass back in the whole southeast corner of that yard on the back. I think what the grass will do, any drainage that flows that way, the grass will absorb the silt. It'll filter the water, and by the time the water goes under the fence to Paul's drain, I think at that point it'll be clear as a bell. The water will be clear. And if we need additional plantings back there to absorb any drainage that goes that way, we'd be glad to do that. But it's totally unreasonable to have some kind of very expensive drainage system in there that we've never had before.
You want to address that, Mr. Dory, or me to talk to him?
You can.
I'll say a couple of things. Just for clarification, we're not asking for a $10,000 drainage system. We are asking for a site evaluation, which apparently is going to cost $10,000 because we don't know what's going on out there. And I understand what you're saying. I understand what Paul's saying. I understand what Lisa's saying. We need to hear it from someone who has a professional land surveyor or professional engineer certification after their name. Then we'll know what we have to work with. And ideally, there might be a simple solution, and your solution might be just great of replanting the grass. But we need to hear that from someone with some relevant skills who can evaluate the site as it is now and suggest what needs to be done to make it mesh with its neighboring properties. The other point I'm going to add is that you're right. You've had 5 tenants. You should have had 5 site plan reviews for the property. The prior building inspector as zoning enforcement officer never picked up on that. I don't know why that happened. It was an oversight. The current building inspector, there's been a change of staff. There is a new building inspector and zoning enforcement officer, and he is paying attention to things like this. So that is, it may seem on its face unfair that Steve is being asked to do things that Hasty Fence wasn't being asked to do. If we had been aware of the transfer of use in there, if the zoning enforcement officer had been aware of it and called it to our attention, we would have acted on that. So I want to say we're not being unfair to Steve. I do say I feel like your prior tenants were lucky because they slipped under the radar.
The way I see it, I just think everybody's on him like white on rice, and I don't think it's right. Secondly, if this is only $10,500 to look at it, I can't even imagine what it's going to be to put a drainage system in. I am not going to bear the cost of that, and I don't think Steve can bear the cost of that. I think it's totally unreasonable. His drainage thing is on my property. Maybe he can bear the cost of that, seeing as he's the complainant here. That's where I stand with this. Where is his water being dumped? He lives closer to the wetlands than I do. Where's his water going? Is it going to a storm drain retainage system, or is it going right out into the wetlands?
We can provide you with a copy of his drainage plans.
As you can see, I'm a little wound up about this. I'm just finding out about all this. And this could be a lot of money. This could break us.
Well, we're not trying to break anybody, but the drainage is what the drainage is. If the part of the problem system might be have prior tenants modified the elevations on the property to make the drainage worse than it used to be. We don't know that.
I can tell you that. I'll answer that. The grass was removed. That was it. I told you I'd put it back. That's the only difference. I'll put the grass back. That'll absorb the water.
And that is a possibility, but we don't know that until we get the professional opinion of the engineer. We're not trying to make anybody go broke or drive anybody into bankruptcy here. We're just trying to get to the bottom of what it really is going on.
What's he running there that they're worrying about?
You know, up until this, we have, well, this person did this person did that. And that might be 100% true. It might be not. We just want to find out what is, like Mr. Dwyer said, what is the real story on the property and elevations and stuff like that.
All right. He's not running a car wash back there.
We're trying to work with everybody here.
There's no water usage there. He's parking vehicles back there. I don't understand this concern about the water. So it's just rainwater that could run into the grass if we replant the grass. I mean, where does everyone else's rainwater run? This is ridiculous. I've never seen anything so ridiculous.
Weren't there allegations of chemicals
Well, he had salt brine there. Do you know what salt brine is? He's a landscaper. He plows in the winter. He had a salt tank in the back. Lisa thought it was boric acid or something, and it pulled all the fire alarms on it. It's the same stuff the DOT puts down on the road. But Steve, being a good citizen, he did what you wanted. He removed the salt brine tank. It's gone. There's no other chemicals in that. It's salt brine that the state uses is salt and water. It's just a melted down version of salt. You see the tanker truck driving down the road before a storm, and they spray the street with it. That's what it was.
Just want to add, there are regulations relating to the storage of salt brine in an aquifer protection district.
I get it. It's gone. He took it out.
That was the issue.
All right. It's gone. He took it out.
Yes, thank you. I understand that. It is gone now. That was why it was an issue, and that's why it's no longer an issue.
So what else are you concerned about that's draining?
What is this? What was that question?
What else are you concerned of that he is supposedly draining onto the property? When he's not handling any chemicals and it's just rain falling from the sky.
That is what we're trying to get the professional opinion of the elevation of the property to tell us.
So let's just say that Steve moved out. We had an office person moved in. You're going to ask for a site plan and the same requirements?
Theoretically, yes. We look at these on a case-by-case basis. If you have an accountant move in, we would assume that they would have relatively little need for the use of the yard other than for parking. And that's a different story. But I think we still need to figure out how much has been changed by all these tenants you've had over the years.
But what are you going to compare it to? What change are you going to compare it to?
Your best avenue to get the answer to that is us, because we know what's been going on there for 25 years. All these other people have come and gone. Because my wife is right. You've got nothing to compare it to. You've got nobody to go to ask these questions except us. We're telling you, the only thing that happened back there is the grass was removed because they wanted to park vehicles without destroying the grass. So they figured they'd remove the grass, and they put some stone dust down, and that's all been removed. Steve's fixed it all. And I'm willing to put the grass back the way it was originally. I don't think that's unreasonable.
And that might be fine, but we want a professional opinion on what is there, what needs to be corrected, how it needs to be, what's recommendations to correct it.
All right, can I ask you something? Who's going to pay for this professional opinion? Me? Steve? Paul Zarodnik? Who's paying for it? Lisa Sanderson?
The fee for this study will be up to the owner and the tenant. They're the responsible parties.
I'm the owner. He's the tenant. I'm not paying that. I'm going to tell you that right now. This has never been a problem until now.
That's between you and the tenant, how it's paid for. We don't get into that.
Well, I'll tell you right now. I tell you who should pay for this is Paul Zarodnik, because his drain is on my land. And I've already spoken to my lawyer about that. And I can get around that. That easement can be removed. And then I'm going to make him take his drain off my property. That's where this is going.
Again, the payment for the study is between the owner and the tenant, and the town doesn't get involved in who or how or where.
I'm willing to work with you, and obviously you guys aren't willing to work with me. I can see that right now. You're making me jump through some hoops. Unreasonable.
I mean, $10,000
to just look at it. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Maybe you guys got that kind of money. I don't.
But you're going to put us out of business. Thank you.
This is totally unreasonable. Go ahead. You got the floor. I said my piece.
We said ours.
So you're sticking to your guns? I can't go in there and try to make the repairs. I'm an old man. I'm retired. I don't have that kind of money.
What you do? No one is stopping you from planting grass there. What we can't tell you is that planting grass there will solve the problems.
A problem that just poof, all of a sudden came to life after 25 years. Amazing. Because he sits in his little office window back there counting the money he makes every month. And then he looks out the window and he doesn't like what he sees.
Yeah, this is where this all started. He didn't like the way it looked. So Paul took it upon himself to start complaining to me because he didn't like that there was a piece of trash blowing in his direction, or the fence was falling down and it wasn't repaired. This is where this all started.
That's right. That's exactly right. He's the source of this. He's created this.
And we were so nice to give him an easement and never even charged him. And now he's doing nothing but complaining and causing all these problems. And I understand your side. Don't get me wrong. I understand. However, you have to understand our side. You know, Steve's just a tenant. We're the landlord. We didn't know all this. Had we known all this beforehand, we would have definitely made a different decision as to who we would get to rent the property. But unfortunately, with Route 9 being ripped up and looking the way it was, nobody wanted to come and rent that property on Route 9. So Steve was the most likely candidate. So that's about all we have to say. And as far as Lisa goes, she's been bugging us to parking space anytime that we had the property vacant, because she didn't have enough parking for her big oversized building that she built.
You know, what irritates me the most, we were good neighbors. We never bothered anybody. And now this guy and her, she's bothering us. Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. I just can't believe people. I can't believe people. Never bothered them. Welcome to Hadley. I'm done.
Anybody else in the audience have any comments? Nothing.
So I'm going to suggest the scope of work did say they could start within 2 weeks. As Steve said, that was a month ago. I wonder if we can schedule some sort of a status conference that's short of a continuation of well, I guess we can call it a continuation of the full meeting, but I think we just really like to get a sense of how this is all working. And I wonder, would a month be enough? Should
5th of March?
5th of March?
That sound reasonable for you, Steve, to start? Okay.
I'm just going to call that an update.
Okay.
If by any chance the site work is complete, if they have a report, and maybe the report will be simply just, we took a look and we agree that planting grass would solve a lot of problems. Maybe we can wrap things up. Otherwise, we can continue it out a bit. I don't want to put undue pressure on this, but we do need to keep it moving along.
Yeah. That sound reasonable to you, Steve? Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to continue this to March 5th. 2024.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Very good. Okay,
Seems like there's an opportunity for this to be settled between the landlords, but it's unfortunate we're all in this situation. That's all I'll say.
It's a shame that ill feeling has arisen here. It'd be nice if people get together and talk it out.
If I can interrupt for a second, we tried to do that with Paul. We tried to resolve his issues, but he just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And at the time that he was really irritating me, I was in the midst of burying my father, who died during this whole COVID nightmare. So I was pretty hostile getting these continuous phone calls from him because he didn't like the way things were looking. So he decided to take it upon himself to say, I'll show her. And the same thing with Lisa. She kept calling me and leaving messages. And I told her, if you're interested in what Steve is holding in that container, you should call Steve and talk to him directly. And she didn't like the way I approached her on that. So yeah, we did try to resolve this in a reasonable way, but now it's gotten to this point. So Steve's lease will be coming up pretty soon. And I wouldn't blame him if he just said, hey, the hell with it. It's not worth it for me. I'm going to walk away. And then we're going to have a big mess on our hands to clean up that place. And then the next person that comes in, we're going to have to make sure they go through this site plan and do this all over again. But in the meantime, it's going to leave us with a heck of a burden. So I'm sorry that it's led to this, but this is the way politics is. And that's it. I'm done.
okay. See you on March 5th.
Paul, it looks like you're talking, but you're muted, so.
What's that?
Paul was talking, but his,
Oh, I thought you said I was muted. I said, I didn't think so.
Okay. Is zoning articles.
Yes.
Jim sent around the battery storage bylaw to,
Anybody have any other corrections on? We talked about it last time. Is it ready to go into and go into the town administrator to be amended for that section of the bylaw? Yes, Mark.
I read what Tom Corbett wrote, and I thought about it, and perhaps it was a little knee-jerk to say absolutely not in the aquifer protection. If we just elevated the measures that are taken, the precautions to contain worst case scenarios, he makes a bunch of valid points in his letter. So I would suggest that we consider, instead of, especially with all the limitations that we have in town, if we consider it within the aquifer protection, but with considerably elevated safety measures. He makes a good point that there's no restriction of, I drive an EV, that's probably more of a risk, or at least somewhat comparable of a risk. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought comparing the Tesla charging station to this electricity generating battery system was a little over the top. I mean, you drive your car away, Mark. This thing is going to be permanent.
I am concerned that we may get it rejected by the Attorney General if they point out that, what did he say? Only 2% of the town is available without constraints.
Yeah.
If we keep the aquifer.
Well, I think it's more than that, but I agree with him that it is a low number. I think his numbers are a little bit way pessimistic, if you would. I mean, it's probably more than that, but it's still not a large percentage of town for certain.
Which is not a bad thing. I mean, if these things are economic, you can take it to the industrial area, buy the property and put it in there. There's a market, there's a price for everything.
But I'm, you know, I what do you think, Joe?
You know, certainly they're pushing for their side. They're pushing for their installation of these battery storage facilities. Our obligation is to protect the town, not to accommodate them in any way, shape, or form. So if we're going to be overruled by the Attorney General better have some decent statistics and what is safe and what is not safe. Then we can accommodate them by making them less hazardous. But as it is now, our job is to primarily protect the town. And if we're erring on the side of caution, so be it. That's the way we should err.
All of this is true, but the Attorney General is not going to have, you know as well as I, the Attorney General is not going to have anything to say on how to do it the right way. They're just going to say that it's too restrictive, you're turned down. So it's going to be up to the individual municipalities to come up with the right guidelines to allow it wherever it has to be. And it's a good question. You know, if it's too restrictive, it's going to get turned down. And if it's too lenient, it could be a disaster down the road to something happens. So let me look at let me take a much closer look and do some research on what Tom has said and try to see what it looks like if I rewrite the bylaw permitting it in the aquifer with his input and anything else I can dig up. We have a little bit of time. Maybe we can find something out that's decent for everybody involved.
Excuse me, go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Mike. I wonder if Ken or PVPC could tell us if Hadley is the norm or not the norm. If, you know, what if our town is, you know, we don't have three-phase power in other areas and it all happens to be under, you know, where our three-phase opportunities for ESS all just happens to be or mostly in aquifer protection. And do we have a larger percentage of aquifer protection in our town than say other towns where, you know, I don't know if towns are getting their water.
Mark, quickly, I can know that answer. Hadley has a very large piece of its town in the aquifer recharge.
So then
probably larger than most, but maybe not all in the state.
So then maybe we shouldn't be asked to do, you know, maybe there are other towns that would lend themselves better to the ESS program that the state is trying to push, and hopefully the state would understand that we are their Midwest, what do you want to call it? We're the agricultural equivalent, you know, for the state, and that shouldn't be forced down our throat.
Yeah, Hadley's pulling its water out of a geologic zone below the top of the soil, the ground. I don't know how deep it is. 400, 500, 600 feet. We don't pull our water from a reservoir as Amherst does, excuse me, Northampton does. Go up Haydenville Road, leading to Whately, and you'll see where Northampton gets all their water. It's above ground. You think Northampton's going to allow these batteries to be put next to that?
I wonder if Boston would want energy storage around the Quabbin, if that's where their water supply is.
So I think the original proposal was pretty darn good, and we can't be swayed. You know, there was no law from the state saying you had to put these structures in. It came from a non-elected body saying we've got to have battery storage. There was no discussion in the State House about this, as far as I know.
Well, there is actually discussion about the solar power broadly, or energy storage, does have a protective clause like the Dover Amendment in Chapter 40B, which says, you know, you shall not unreasonably regulate it.
Correct.
I did read recently, in conjunction with the Mass Municipal Association meeting, that there is some discussion among some state representatives about going back and modifying that language to remove the coercive effect. Now, it's just a discussion among some, and it's probably not a high legislative priority. So don't know what to tell you about, you know, don't wait on it.
Yeah, when I said discussion, I meant really that led to legislation. And we know that the electricity that's going into these batteries, a very minor portion of that is coming from green sources, just because of the nature of the electricity generation going into the grid.
Yeah, it's like the Northfield Mountain Pump Storage. It's but it's what we have. And so the other concern is, now, just want to be sure, I don't want to overvalue it, overrate it, but I don't want to ignore it, is that were the Attorney General to reject our bylaw, and were Mr. Corbett's company to come in with their proposal, and we would probably turn it down on the basis of the opinion of town council that it is not solar, and then we're off to court for 3 or 4 years.
I remind you, we have an application for Mr. Corbett for energy storage.
Yeah. He could also make the argument that he's grandfathered because he got in before we changed the rules.
That's correct. I mean, we did not, we have not published a public hearing yet, but we can't put them off too much longer. We've got to do something.
Well, surely Eversource, through their agent, Tom Corbett, doesn't want to endanger the health of the people of Hadley, Massachusetts, do they? I just thought I'd throw that out.
That's not our comment.
Well, but it's something to think about.
So,
and you know, unfortunately, this is going to have to go to court, I think, and perhaps not through Hadley, perhaps through some other legal process. But it's not defined, and somebody's going to have to define it. And if Hadley has to be the defining case here, let it happen.
However, we have an application for Mr. Corbett, and we have his pending bylaw. We need to move on both of them.
I think we can publish. You know, it's not going to affect Corbett directly, but I think we can go ahead and publish any time, because we don't have to publish the full text of the bylaw.
Right. We just have to have it, make it available. We can amend it before town meeting.
Yeah.
And should we publish also Mr. Corbett's public hearing for his energy storage?
since he has filed already, I don't think it matters whether we publish it or whether we go ahead with the public hearing or not.
Well, he hasn't filed it. He's given it to us to file. And he's waiting to move forward. We're waiting for us to schedule the hearings and everything else.
Okay.
So my recommendation is that we publish a public hearing on the on the bylaw for March 5th. And we publish the public hearing for Mr. Corbett on the 19th. Does that sound reasonable to everybody?
Reasonable.
That does. Does that question his grandfather if his public hearing is 2 weeks after the public hearing for what would stop him from being in the or is
Well, so we get into this definition of filing, and you know, once he has filed it, if he files prior to the publication of the notice of the public hearing, he's grandfathered. I might want to think about whether he has already filed because he submitted it to us.
Yeah.
We haven't noticed the public hearing on it yet, but I think maybe just the fact that it hit our desk might have been enough to grandfather him.
Yeah.
Not sure about
thought
that.
so.
But
Do we need to get a legal opinion on that, or is that a legal opinion?
does filing for a special permit, you're assuming that it follows the same rules as a subdivision bill, right?
Yeah.
It is not. My understanding, that the subdivision, if you file a subdivision, your grandfather, as long as you do it before the first notification of the public hearing. But if you file for anything else, it's different, is it not?
We don't know.
So are we saying that if somebody wanted to put one of these mini nuclear reactors in town and we didn't have a bylaw addressing that they could do it by right?
No, because our bylaw is written in an exclusionary manner. If it doesn't say it's permitted, it's prohibited.
So
That is why,
this isn't permitted, though.
that's correct. But it's got to do with the state saying that the solar bylaw, you can't prohibit it.
This has nothing to do with solar. I thought we agreed on that.
Well, that's
Not the way the state bylaw is written, the state code is written. We're concerned that if we don't do anything and the state determines that energy storage is under the solar bylaw, and the way the solar bylaw in the state is written right now, it could be. It's a gray area. And I, for one, don't want to find out by default. I would rather be ahead of the curve and get something on paper that says it's permitted and this is what you have to do than to find out we get it stuck down our throats.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah, let's go ahead and publish for the zoning bylaw. Have the public hearing for that on the 5th.
Yes,
Public hearing for Corbett's project on the 19th.
correct.
We'll see how it all sails through town meeting, if at all. And, we do have an opinion of council that says battery storage is not solar. If we have to process his application, then maybe we have to deny it, but he can appeal it.
Right.
just a quick question. Any idea how deep the aquifer is from which we're drawing water? Is it
Somewhere between 300 to possibly as much as 1,000 feet deep.
okay?
So Scott McCarthy could probably tell us how deep his well field is.
Right. But he can tell you how deep the well field is. I think the one in Mount Warner, well, it's somewhere around, they're both somewhere between 400 to 600. I don't remember exactly what they said, but the aquifer extends much deeper than that. How much deeper? I don't know if they know.
And then you get into parts per million if there's a contamination.
Yeah. So
Interesting stuff.
yeah, I mean it's also wicked complicated by any means.
Phil, you're doing a good job trying to weave your way through this.
Well, we're all trying. This is a joint effort. It's not a Jimmy Maximowski effort. This is a planning board effort.
We're blessed to have a bona fide aquifer to protect. You know,
Yes.
I think of the conditions of people over in the Middle East or even in California, where their aquifer has been depleted by companies like Nestle.
Anyways.
I digress.
Bill, on this construction sign, you want me to issue a simple waiver?
Yeah, why don't you do a waiver of 10 square feet, and you have a copy of the.
Yeah, I'll include the drawings. Okay. All right.
Are we doing a waiver, or he's going to comply with the 10 square feet?
Well, it's a waiver of additional site plan approval for this
As
construction.
long as he complies with the 10 square feet. Okay.
Right.
Motion was to approve his sign at 10 square feet, not to exceed.
Yes. All right. So I will publish the notices. I will work on wording of the aquifer to possibly, of the energy bylaw to possibly include different things to be, if we think it's worthwhile to do it within the aquifer, we can make a look at that at our next meeting for a review and go from there. Anything else?
So just one quick thing. I did get an email from Kayla today. She now has access privileges to the website. So for our next meeting, just be thinking about what you would like to see on the website. And she can join our next meeting. She couldn't join tonight's meeting, but we can at least have a list of who's on the board and when our terms expire.
That should, because that used to be
What's
there.
she doing on minutes, Bill?
She's just getting started on.
Okay.
We used to have a much more extensive website. The website hosting was changed. We said, please just port over everything we've got, and it didn't happen.
Okay.
Stuff just got stripped out in the process.
Okay. You know, a lot of our drawings are electronically filed on the town network now. Unfortunately, neither you or I have a computer to access it yet, but I guess that's coming.
That's coming. Yeah.
Well, it's in our office, Jim, right?
The files are.
Yeah. Where is our office now?
Somewhere in a town hall. Maybe.
Is there any progress with there was talk back before COVID or during COVID about us maybe going into the old library?
I am not aware of any progress on the renovation of the Goodwin building.
Okay.
Yeah. They've got between Russell School, the library, the DPW facility, and the new water tanks that are needed for the town, there's a little bit shortage of funds.
Okay.
And they're working on some prioritizing of A, B, C, D, and so on.
So there might, and I don't even know if we want to do it as temporary storage, because we don't know what kind of renovation work is going to be done at Goodwin. But as a practical matter, they have to start with an elevator.
Yeah.
And handicapped accessible restrooms.
Yeah.
which are both big ticket items. And then, we don't know what else it entails. So, yeah, I think at the moment, our file cabinets are living in what used to be the select board meeting office on the second floor. The select board's not using it anymore. They're meeting over at the senior center now.
Right.
So it's just a file room.
And Russell School, did that new study ever get done that the 30,000 was voted on?
I don't know what's going on with that one.
I believe that they only recently got in replies to the request for proposals. So if they have something for annual town meeting, I will be surprised.
We don't, I'm assuming it's not in our volunteer, I mean, we're practically volunteer status. It's not in our purview to respond to unjust accusations against us, like that we could have not allowed use along the rail trail. I'm thinking of the storage facility that we were maligned about.
Well, we'll see if Mike gets any feedback for his blob poster.
It's just to correct it. It was 1958 movie, which started Steve McQueen's career that I was referring to, not this one. Can you see it? Can you see it? That one.
Yes.
Anyway,
Cult classic.
I suspect that it will not be to anyone's advantage to get into, we'd be always happy to have a conversation with people about the planning process.
Yeah.
I am sure that if Scott Mersbach wants to ask anyone for their thoughts, they're free to share with him. I don't feel the need to write a letter to the editor or anything. I don't know, is that,
I agree with that.
I don't think there's enough words allowed in those to answer.
From what Joe Zagranik has said, this article was a walk in the park compared to what was going on in the attacks that were happening when the malls were coming in. Right?
The article in the Gazette is an opinion paper, is an opinion, and that's exactly what it is.
Yep.
Enough said. Anything else?
I have nothing else.
I have nothing else. Anybody have anything?
Oh, UMass, I heard they're on a roll. 2 in a row.
Hope so.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to,
Second.
yes.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is history. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alex.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, all.